Start recording. Reset. God. All right, third take. First take, Pete ruined. Second take, I ruined. It's going to be a great show today.
Third time's charm, baby.
All right, theme song. Get me in the mode. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Man vs. World. We have hit episode number 12. We are now a dozen deep into this wonderful little experiment here. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. As always, we are joined by Pete. Pete, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You know, we had some, as you guys may have heard, Self Mastery Club has dropped officially. And there's a little bit of issues on the email side of things, but I think we fixed it. It's working good. And yeah, it's been super fun.
Yeah, it seems like no matter, I've launched a number of products now at this point in different communities, and there's always technical issues. It's just the nature of running an online business. Unless you are someone who can just hand off the whole thing to a project manager who can do it all for you and that sort of thing, which, you know, we like to do things a little DIY. We get a little rugged with our approach. So, you know, luckily everything seems to be up and running smoothly now. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. And the best way to do that is to check out our web class on cracking the code to fitness, money, and sex without selling your soul or becoming a disciplined robot. All right. In this class, we're pretty much break down like the top insights that I discovered in over almost 10 years of being a masculine self-development coach, right? And a lot of this stuff was helping guys with some of like the deepest, most hardcore problems that you can face, you know, like porn addiction, drug addiction, severe mindset issues, all that kind of thing. And so if you want to find out what I discovered in that, well, then check out the web class. And I'll also tell you about the Self-Mastery Club, because that's the focus moving forward. You know, some people have given me flack for trying out a lot of different things. Well, guess what I was doing? I was just iterating quickly, and I was iterating in public. And some people, they might even say it was brave for me to do that. Many of you will probably just criticize me for it. That's fine. It was what I needed to do, but guess what? I found my focus. It's the Self-Mastery Club, friends, all right? That's the thing moving forward that's going to help you level up in your life, all right? The entire culture today is set up to screw you over, all right? It's not designed to help you. And so you need something on your team. You're just going to stand against the entire world? Well, you know, you definitely want some help. So if you're interested in checking any of that stuff out, then check out the web class in the link below and check out the Self-Mastery Club.
Yeah, the guys are loving the webinar. The engagement on it was incredible. I was really surprised to see it, but like, you know, it's an in-deep class, guys. You're gonna learn some things that you may have heard before, but you know, for example, he tells some stories on that web class that just gave me personally, listening to that, an entirely new understanding of preemptive entries, especially, and
just
how
like the like journaling and stuff like that. Yeah.
So yeah, you guys are going to like it. Even if you think you're familiar with this stuff, it'll give you kind of another angle to look at it from, and it'll give you a better understanding. So I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it already.
Yes. So we're going to keep running that class, and you know, if you can sign up at any point, we'll also send out the recordings on it. And so we're going to keep pumping it. But for the topic of today, Pete, what's going on? What do we got?
You know, because we launched Self Mastery Club, there was a couple guys in there who had some interesting questions, and I actually wanted to talk about them. So right. James on Self Mastery Club, he asked, am I working too much? He says, I work about all day for 6 days a week. I'm learning to code, working out, working a job, and I'm attending college. With how much I work, it sometimes feel like I'm a slave trying to juice as much out of myself as possible, and I have no time to pursue any hobbies. I was wondering, is this healthy, or am I working myself too hard? What do you think?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, how do you define working too hard? Well, really, it's too hard when you're not moving toward the goals that you have prioritized the most. Okay. That's really the simplest answer. So like if a coaching client came to me and he asked me that, it's like, well, what do you want? Right? Because for some people, working their ass off is a necessary part of where they're at in their journey. For some people, that's their destination. Some people, they just want to be working constantly. That's just how they're designed. They want to just be completely, nose to the grindstone as much as humanly possible. That's a small percentage of people, but there are some people out there like that. I think in some ways, kind of like grind culture, hustle culture, and stuff like that, they tend to promote that sort of thing, and maybe glorify it. So maybe there's a few more people who kind of have adopted that mentality. But in general, like, you got to ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish here? Like, if you're just trying to reach a certain milestone where things get easier, well, then, yeah, maybe you're going to have to work pretty hard for a period of time. But if you're not, right, like, what else do you want? Do you want more time with friends and family than you're getting? Then yes, you're working too hard. Do you want more time to like pursue fitness and hobbies? Well, then yes, technically, according to your goals, you are working too hard. And so a lot of this has to do with like, how are you mapping out your timeline? Like, how are you mapping out the trajectory of your life? Because if you don't really have a vision, if you don't have a perspective of like, I'm going to reach this step and then I want this to happen, well, then it's really hard to evaluate things. And so, if you don't know what comes next, then it's easy to just default to, well, I'm just going to work harder. And if I ask someone about that, it's like, why? It's like, well, I'll be rich. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe, it depends on what you're working on and, what kind of progression is available to you. But let's say that's the case. All right. Let's say, all right, if you just work your ass off for the next 20 years, you'll be able to retire. Okay. But you're going to have to basically have no fun along the way and just have to constantly feel drained and pushed to your limit. Is that worth it? Is that the path you want to walk for the next 20 years? You're not going to get those 20 years back, right? You might not even get all of those 20 years, let's be honest. So you got to think, like, how do I really want to live? That's the big thing you got to ask yourself, is like, how do I really want to live most? How do I want to wake up and what do I want to feel? That's probably the first thing. It's like, what do I want to feel in my days? And you start there. It's like, well, I want to feel like, I'm at peace. I want to feel like I'm doing something important. I want to feel like I'm not constantly stressed and pushed to my limit. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Some people, they want to be, like I said. But once you figure out how you want to feel, then you start asking yourself, well, what sorts of lifestyles would generate that feeling for me? Right? Maybe for some people, they really want to be working in connection with a lot of other people. Maybe that's their number. They want to be really socially connected. They want to be interfacing with people every day. They want to be getting out into the world. Some people, they just want to have their work, have very little oversight, and just be able to hunker down and do it. Some people will be happy just living in a cabin, working on their novel, right? So much of this stuff, like how hard you should work, is entirely dependent upon what it is you want out of your life. And yes, sometimes you're going to have to make compromises. It's because the thing that you want to be at takes work to get there. But you got to ask yourself, how fast do I want to get there? Okay? Do I need to get there immediately? If so, then yeah, you're probably going to have to really bust some ass for a while. If you're okay taking a longer road, well, then you can chill out a little bit. You don't need to go as hard. You can actually enjoy the journey along the way. And I think for most of us, that's probably the best approach. Not everybody, okay? But for most of us, I think the best approach is to be living a life that you want to be a part of, okay? You actually want to live it. And you do need to probably work hard, because that's a lot of what gives you a life worth living, is that you are putting in the proper efforts that produce a lifestyle that you do not truly want to escape from. But if it's just all effort, well, that causes the same problem. It's like a life with no effort, it's going to produce a life you want to escape from. A life with only effort is also going to produce a life that you want to escape from. And so it's about finding that middle ground. And that's where it gets tricky, because then it's about making decisions, it's about making compromises. But it's these sorts of things that are going to really, like if you take the time to really think them through and you have conversations about this kind of stuff and everything along those lines, well, that's what's going to help you really find out who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to do it. There
is sort of this fantasy of like, I'm going to love my work so much that that's all I'm going to do, and I'm never going to do anything that isn't my work ever again. And, you know, like I fall into that too. It's like, you know, I want to have something that I can just do that one thing. You know what I mean? But it's interesting. We were talking off camera about this guy, Russell Brunson, who's a bit of a entrepreneur. He's got a podcast called Marketing Secrets. And he was, I think he went number 2 in the country in wrestling when he was in college. And you know what's funny? This guy who has like 12 different businesses at one time, and he coaches like a bunch of other entrepreneurs and stuff, and he's like building this software as a service company. He takes time every single year on his calendar. Everything else revolves around a wrestling tournament that he goes to every single year, and he competes at. And he's basically committed that he's going to do it every single year until he dies. So
wait, he's still wrestling?
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh wow, that's wild.
Yeah, he loves it. He says if I wasn't in, like, his identity is almost more a wrestler than an entrepreneur. They're like kind of close.
Huh. That's cool. I didn't know about that. I know he was a really good wrestler, but I didn't realize that. But yeah, that's a really good point, because I read this awesome book. It's called Range, and it's by David Epstein, Range, Range. And what he talks about how is like, you know, there's this one person who achieves success by becoming this hyper specialized and focused person, right? Like that the chess grandmaster who just devoted himself entirely to chess, and he's just been doing it nonstop and nothing else for years and years and years, like since a little kid. But then he points out, well, there's this other path to success. This person with a wide range of different interests and hobbies and experiences, and then that person can also reach the top. And so, because there's something to be said for being a well-rounded person, like, you know, you just learn, like, there are just like a few fundamental principles in life, and you can find them easier in different activities. But when you have them, they usually transfer over, right? Like getting in shape, being strong, physically fit, that's taught me a ton, okay? And that knowledge has transferred over to a lot of other areas. You know, learning things about relationships and human interaction. It's also transferred over to a lot of different things. Like even, heck, like all my years playing video games, that's taught me stuff about the world. There's value to be found in everything. And so if you learn how to find that balance between getting what you want and getting what you need and doing what you need, right? Like if you can find that balance, that can take you on all different kinds of journeys. For some people, it will be that hyper-focused sort of thing. But for other people, being 100% all in on their mission might actually mean that they spread their energy around somewhat, because they're meant to explore, they're meant to pursue these other things. So, you know, there's no straightforward answer to this kind of stuff, but it's one of those things that you're going to have to really feel out in your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, so next up, I came across this video, and it was called Discord, the most evil business in the world. And, you know, I thought that was rather timely given our recent launch. So here's a bit of a supercut version of that video.
Okay, let's see this. I'm scared to see this.
Initially, Discord Nitro could be purchased for $4.99 a month, and gave its subscribers access to various customizations or upgrades such as sticker packs, high-quality video sharing, and custom emojis. In 2018, Discord added new features such as server boosting and larger file uploads. And that's all well and good, until you do the math. In July of 2020, Discord purportedly generated $120 million from subscriptions. But then, how is Discord a multi-billion-dollar company if it's only generating $120 million from subscriptions? I mean, the company hasn't even had a year of profit since its founding. So are subscriptions really the key behind Discord's billion-dollar empire? No. Instead, Discord's business model is by getting investments. And this is one of the ways Discord can make so much money, by selling parts of their company and the access to data that comes with it. And this is quite sinister on its own, but the one name that stands out from the rest of these investment firms and makes the problem so much worse is Tencent. Tencent is just an extension of the CCP. It is a communist company. To expand China's cultural influence, Tencent has been buying up stakes in some of America's biggest tech giants, most notably buying a 38% share in in Discord, which is very problematic when you take a look at recent Chinese politics, like the CCP's new National Intelligence Law, a law that makes all citizens and companies legally obliged to help the government gather foreign intelligence on the data of billions around the world, all while keeping any cooperation with the government a secret. And so when you understand that Tencent is just a subsidiary of the Chinese government, it's not hard to imagine why Tencent has suddenly bought shares in over 600 companies.
Well, that's scary. And this is just like one of those things that's going to be like an ever-growing issue, right? Like your privacy is, people are just going to constantly be trying to harvest it, right? They're going to be trying to get into your brain. And the reason for this, like, you know, there's all kinds of reasons for this. Like, you know, societal political control is a big one. But one of the biggest, I would say, is for algorithmic information. Because once they understand you inside out, once they understand you better than you understand you, then they can control your attention, right? They will be able to know what keywords to put in the ads in front of you. They will know like what video you need to be shown next at what percentage rate in order to be staying hooked onto their app, right? And then there's obviously a lot scarier things they can do with all of this information, but these are some of the biggest ones. And it's like for the average person, it's like if you want to be taking control over your life, well, then a big part of that's about taking control over your data. And it's one of those things where it's like doesn't seem like that big of a deal right now, but I think it is. I think this is something that it's going to increasingly be an issue for the people in the know. And the people in the know are already, you know, yelling and screaming about this sort of stuff. But this is actually a big reason why we moved the Self Mastery Club off of these major platforms. Like, I had been using Discord specifically for years, and it's, you know, it's a really well-made platform. It works super well at what it does. But at the same time, it's like, you know, do you really want to be putting, like, do I personally really want to be putting the keys of my business into the hands of a company like this, a company that has, you know, ties to the Chinese government, a company that sells data and all that kind of stuff? And I thought up until recently, Discord said that they do not sell any data. And I don't know how accurate this video is, but...
You know, it's interesting. I recommend that you guys check out the video in full, because it's got a lot of interesting history on the founder of Discord and his previous company, which was actually went under a lawsuit due to privacy concerns. And so there's like a lot of, this goes pretty deep with regards to not only the founder of Discord, but also the intricacies in their privacy policy. Kind of gives them certain stipulations on sharing user information. So even though publicly they say, no, we don't share any information, well, they're getting bought up by Tencent, who owns all this other stuff, who's, you know, directly linked to the government there, because that's how it works in China, you know. And so it's kind of just a matter of time thing. They're already the largest shareholder of Discord, you know, and they're trying to acquire more, from my understanding. But yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's the weird shit about the modern world where it's like you got to worry about all your metadata, all your information, even your DNA, like just getting gobbled up by like big corporations. I don't know. The world's nuts. So what else you got for me today, Pete? All
right. Well, Bruce from the Self Mastery Club has a question for us, so I thought it was pretty cool. Okay. He says, hey guys, I was wondering how you deal with not going too fast and overloading yourself when it comes to self-mastery. I've always had this problem. I start off with a good, healthy pace, but then I always end up doing too much and getting burnt out and frustrated. After journaling, I realized it's because I don't want to be patient and I want to achieve the thing right now. Any tips or insights would be appreciated.
Sure. So this is one of the biggest things, I think, in life, is that there's like no such thing as shortcuts, right? There are better paths, okay? But a shortcut is something that's like a cheat, okay? It's like you can cheat the work. It's like a real path is something where someone has already done the work and maybe they can offer you a path that's faster, but someone had to do the work. Someone had to do it right. And then they maybe charge you access to get there quicker. Like, for example, someone who's like a physical fitness trainer. Okay. They studied for years how to get in shape, and they say, hey, I'll train you and I'll make it easier and quicker. Well, the toll was paid in part by them to like learn the methodology and everything, and then they can take you there more quickly. But the thing that doesn't work is when there's just you think there's no price to be paid. There's just it's really like a con. And a lot of this is what I think a lot of our culture is built upon, is this super quick fix, shortcut mentality. Just pop a pill, just press a button, and boom, it's done. And it's hard to tell on the surface sometimes what's a scam and what's not. But in this case, that culture of let's get it there, and let's get there quicker, I think that affects people's minds, and it makes them think that they can do that with everything. They think that there is a short path to everything, and they start expecting that short path, particularly of themselves. And so since they don't know a way to go quicker, they just say, well, I just have to push harder. And at the end of the day, what this comes down to is an unwillingness to be where you are at. And this is an insecurity issue at the core. It's an insecurity issue because where you are at currently is something that you're saying is not good enough. It's like, where I'm at sucks. I'm not good enough. And because of that, I'm going to reject myself until I reach this goal. And if you look at things like that, well, then one, that's a very conditional relationship with yourself, where it's like, you stop being able to be present and unconditionally, loving and supporting of yourself. Okay. And that's a whole big problem right there. But the other thing then is that it causes you to make bad decisions. It causes you to mismanage your energy because you are at war with your current reality. And so you throw all of this energy, you burn up too much energy trying to go faster than you can. And what happens? You get burnout, and it actually slows you down, right? So this is something that I've struggled with personally a ton. Like a lot of my obsession and stuff with personal development is the result of me being that kind of insecure person. Me feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough where I'm at, so I got to get better, or else I suck. And every time I would push from that place, it would always, bite me in the ass, because I would deplete myself. I would make brash decisions that didn't pan out well because I wasn't making them from the right place, the right kind of clarity. I wasn't really thinking them through because I was just so focused on getting away from where I currently was. And this is why the idea, you can see it actually on that little plaque right there, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Why that concept hit me so hard and hit me so, provided so much value to me, because I realized, all right, sometimes if we want to go as fast as possible in our progression, so often it means slowing down enough to do things right. Okay, you got to slow down and do it right. Okay, like a simple example for me, like when I first started getting into lifting, I just kept adding more and more weight. And I could kind of do it at first because I was, very skinny, particularly in the upper body. And, I had a lot of room to grow. I had a huge amount of newbie gains that I could just gobble up, but I just kept doing it. After putting on 20 pounds of muscle, I just kept trying to linearly increase. And guess what happened? I got hurt. And then I had to really slow down way more. And it created some nagging injuries that bothered me for years. And so this happens with pretty much everything. It's like you can create some momentum by pushing really hard, but it's going to burn you out at some point. So you need to recognize that sometimes the best thing you can do is take a longer time to accomplish your goal if it means accomplishing it correctly. So this is one of the things we see with guys quitting porn all the time. Like they try and get through with just this white knuckle fury, and sometimes they even do it. Like some guys are actually capable of doing it. Usually if they just initially found the porn recovery movement, they get, all fired up. They just white knuckle their way through 90 days. And guess what? Almost always they relapse. And the reason is because they didn't actually change anything. They just kind of, it's like this rubber band that's being stretched. And then eventually it reaches a snapping point. It snaps back. Okay. So guys will do that. They will just keep trying to replicate that success, usually with less success. Like they'll get shorter and shorter streaks until eventually they're not going anywhere, and they'll spend years just doing that, just thinking, I just need to try harder. I just need to try harder. It worked once, blah, blah, blah. And they don't get anywhere. When in reality, if they kind of just slowed down, they actually did the inner work. Yes, it might have taken them a few months to really do it, but they would have it then. It would be theirs. It would be solid. It would be good. So if you want to do this stuff, it starts by recognizing slow is smooth, smooth is fast very often. And by the way, that's I'm pretty sure it's a special forces like training motto for training, like weapons training and stuff like that. It's like you get it down slow. When you're slow, you can make it smooth. And once it's smooth, that's the fastest you can go. So it's recognizing that, and then really accepting yourself, accepting that you're not there yet, and still deciding to love yourself anyway. Still deciding that you have the dignity that makes you worth the effort to go through that process, even if you're not there yet. Because if you withhold that from yourself, well, guess what? You're going to reject yourself. And then you're going to stop caring for yourself. And that's going to cause you to abandon your path. It's going to cause you to abandon your best. Okay? So, yeah, going too hard, burning yourself out, that's for sure an issue. And it gets solved by going slower and sticking with your dignity.
Well, that's kind of an interesting transition into the next story that we got here today, because everybody knows Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which is obviously, a bit of a play on words on the 40-hour work week, but it looks like Twitter employees took him quite literally. Check it out.
I saw this.
Our jobs are at stake. He's a capitalist, so we weren't really operating.
So this guy, he's talking about Elon Musk's Twitter takeover, and this is a Project Veritas video of hidden footage of this guy being interviewed, if you haven't seen it already.
Like capitalist mode, very socialist. Like we're all commie as. I basically went and worked 4 hours a week last quarter. That's just how it works in our company. But in Twitter, it's mental health, everything. If you're not feeling it, you can take a few days off. People have taken months off.
Oh man! So 4 hours a quarter. You can kind of just take time off whenever you want, that sort of thing. And when you have something like that. Okay, don't get me wrong, that sounds cool. Wouldn't it be great to not have to work? Wouldn't it be great to be able to just, if you're not feeling it that day, just not do it at all? Okay, I think that's awesome if you are already established in providing a certain level of value and it's set. And I guess in some ways, Twitter does that. Twitter, it's filling a role, right? It does something and it does it well enough. Arguably it could do it far better, which I think is what Elon Musk's case is, but it does it well enough so that it allows people to slack without major consequences. But the thing is, first of all, can you get into a system that is like that? And then secondly, how long will that system stay viable if that is the culture, right? Because there's got to be some people at Twitter who got to work, particularly probably the people who keep the infrastructure running and that sort of thing. I'm sure those guys don't get to just if the server goes down and the whole site's not working, I'm sure that guy doesn't get to just call in a mental health day. Okay, it's probably more just for this the fluffier, cushier positions. And so it's as soon as you get further and further away from producing actual value, like in this case, this guy's working at this company where the value is more or less already produced and then it's just kind of stays in motion. The further you get away from the production of value, the more outlandish the lifestyle can become, right? You see this with the people who are already rich, right? If you're a trust fund baby, well, yeah, you don't have to work at all. That's great, okay? Because you've already got the money and everything. But this whole idea is not the whole commie idea and that work ethic idea. There's a subreddit. We should probably check it out at some point. Maybe I can't remember if we even looked at it already, but the anti-work subreddit. Have you seen that, Pete?
I haven't, no.
Oh yeah. There's a whole subreddit of people who are basically just I don't want to work. Herp. And it's just it's like a movement. They just don't want to work. Now, I get it. Sometimes having a job sucks, but you're not going to get anywhere. You're just not. You're like basically just asking the other people who work to give you a good life. And I guess what would be the argument, Pete, for the communist argument? It's just like, well, there's people who are really rich, so they should just give me some of their money, and that will make my life better, right? Like more distribution of wealth. Like I don't fully understand how people can like live like that and be happy with themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? No, I don't know, man. But you know, it's kind of funny because Twitter's meanwhile like doing really bad. So like in terms of just pure business numbers, like they don't do so hot. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I wonder why. Let me think about this for a second.
Right. It's like, well, you don't work. You don't produce. It's like Twitter has released like 3 features in like the past like 3 years, and they're all like half baked and like bullshit. So it's like ultimately, like, okay, on the individual level, you know, Tony Robbins has an awesome quote, and it's energy flows where attention goes. All right. Yep. And on a macro level, okay, like say it's a company or society, it's like where the work goes, that's where the growth goes. All right. It's like that's where the energy has to be directed somewhere. And if it's not directed there, then that place it'll stagnate, or it'll become, you know, cancerous, or it'll have all these kinds of issues. And so it's just kind of like this big, Twitter is like a perfect example of this. It's this thing that's become kind of like this infested sort of cesspool, like bloated, you know, dying thing. And Elon, he sees it as, well, there's a lot of potential here. The fundamental premise is very, very powerful, but it's being run poorly. It's not getting the kind of attention it needs. The cells are not getting the oxygen required. You know, it's not being exercised properly. And I think we kind of, like me personally, I always have to like look at that in my own life, because that's what balance is, right? It's like, where am I going to pump blood to in my life? You know, is it okay if this part over here stops beating? I've been working so hard, I haven't talked to any of my friends in months. It's like, well, if you keep doing that, those friendships are going to kind of wither away and they're going to die. And it's like, what does that do for you? You know, maybe that actually shuts down a vital system, because you realize once you have no friends, working becomes pointless, because there's nothing to go enjoy, even if you are successful. Like, so it's like, you gotta be constantly thinking about the bigger system that you yourself are plugged into.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, this kind of reminds me of Perry Marshall, author of 80/20 Sales and Marketing, went to go visit Richard Koch, who's, I think, the author of like the 80/20 principle. So these guys are all about like finding high leverage tasks that bring you big results.
Right.
And so he went to go visit this guy, and they were going to work on a project. And so they get up, you know, he flies in, he spends the night, and they wake up the next morning, they get to work, and they have about an hour-long meeting. Richard Koch says, okay, we're done here, right? And Perry Marshall goes, I guess so. And then Richard Koch continues to go ride a bike for several hours. Right. And then he comes back and he reads a book and he does a little journaling and all this. And Perry's like, this dude literally works 1 hour a day. And keep in mind, Richard Koch, he's like half a billionaire. Like, he's got $500 million. You know what I mean? So he's doing good. And he's like, how can this guy work for 1 hour a day? Well, the thing is, he wasn't. And what Perry Marshall kind of talked about is there's different kinds of work. So that's something that should be considered too. Like, not all work looks the same. When he's riding his bike, he's thinking through complex problems, and then he gets the answer for those. You know, right. It's not just frivolous. He's not sitting on his butt swiping through TikTok. He's not sitting on his butt watching TV. So
yes, that's a really good point. There's all different kinds of work. Like for me, when I'm in a heavy content creation kind of phase, I'll do like 3 to 4 hours like in front of the computer, you know, typing away, trying to get the ideas down. But then I'm spending hours later just passively like ruminating stuff, taking notes when they pop into my head and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you know, you want to find these higher leverage tasks for sure, but also, you know, it can take a while to get into the position where you are that guy. Because usually if you're going to be that guy who's able to operate at that super high leverage position like Richard Koch, well, how much did he have to go through to get to that point? You know, I know there are periods in his life where he had to work his ass off, right? He probably, you know, really put the grind in to acquire all that knowledge to make all this stuff happen. And so, you know, you gotta be willing to put the time in if you want to get up to that privileged position, just like with anything. Like what I was saying earlier, there's no shortcuts to this. It's just about figuring out where you want to get. And clearly in Richard Koch's scenario, he wanted to be that guy who just works on high level like business things. And, you know, it's worked out for him. He's brilliant. You know, you read his books like The Star Principle or Simplify and stuff like that. It's like, okay, this guy has thought extremely deeply for extremely long periods of time. He's the one who pretty much just like brought the 80-20 principle like back into vogue, I'm pretty sure, which is like a massive game-changing understanding of like how the world works. So it's like, you know, he set out to be that guy, to be a thinker, right? And he had to do all the work to build up and make that happen. And so have a dream, guys. That's what it is. Have a dream and then take the real path, right? Like if you've got a dream, there's going to be a bunch of paths laid out in front of you, and some of them are going to look like shortcuts. Don't even look at those, okay? Look at the one that is the most certain, okay? Like if you're going to be like, all right, here's my dream. What's the most certain path? And you're probably not going to want to look at the most certain path to achieving your dream, because the most certain path is usually way less sexy, it looks harder, and it'll probably take longer. But guess what? That's because that's the honest one. That's the one that actually probably has the best chance of getting you there. So don't fall for the bullshit that says, you know, you get to just skip the journey, okay? Embrace the journey. That's going to be a significant part of your life story. Your life is supposed to be an adventure. Embrace the adventure. There will be hardship. Embrace it. It makes your life interesting. It really does. Because without like going on adventures like this, like, what are you going to do? What your adventure then is, it's all vicarious. It's just like, oh, well, you know, what's this online drama happening? Or like, you know, what that politician say? Or, oh, my sports team lost. Or, oh, my sports team won. It's just like, it's all fake then. Because if you don't create real drama in your life by pursuing your mission, then you will be consumed by fake drama, okay? And it'll get you nowhere. So stick to the path, my friends. It's worth it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. If you haven't caught one of the webinars, there's a link in the description. Go ahead and sign up for that. I look forward to seeing you there.
Yep, that's it, my friends. Check it out. Cracking the Code: Fitness, Money, and Sex Without Selling Your Soul or Becoming a Disciplined Robot. Link in the description. Thanks for being here. Ooh, yeah. See y'all in the next one. Also, wait, one final thing. I'm going to be rolling out probably some additional content on YouTube, some more structured stuff moving forward, which I'm pretty excited about. So I know some of you guys have been looking forward to that. I got some new stuff that I've been sitting on for a while, just because I've been focusing so much on the business side. I haven't been able to really roll out the cool content stuff. Well, guess what? It's coming. So just stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.